slides, and you will be amazed at how far these truths to be self-evident extends in this document. So what I'm about to show you are the principles of the Declaration of Independence, and we're going to start with the word hold. What does the word hold mean? We hold these truths. Let's start with that. First grade, kindergarten. 1 + 1 is 2. Hold. Hold is what, when the Supreme Court makes a ruling on a case, they make a holding. We hold. And so the hold actually becomes a stare decisis. It is decided at law that this is the truth. Now, whether it's true or not is irrelevant. That they hold it as true, that's what's relevant. And today the Supreme Court makes holding after holding after holding, and this is how this nation has evolved, because we're basing our entire political reality on what the Supreme Court holds. We hold these truths to be self-evident. Now, whether we agree with it or not, the Founding Fathers held these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. Now, equal. Let's stop here. No one is greater than another, and no one is less than another. And they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. Now, this is a very, very powerful statement. Again, notice at the top, we hold these truths to be self-evident. Here's a self-evident truth the Founding Fathers held to be self-evident. We are endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights. Well, this is a real loaded truth they hold to be self-evident, because it presumes the existence of a Creator, a source higher than mankind, a source higher than governments of man, a source higher beyond this planet, that is the source and origin of our rights. And these rights that it's referring to are unalienable, or as some would believe, unalienable. In essence, we get to the same place. Endowed. Well, endowed means to be furnished with. It means to derive from another. It means to be provided with. So the endowment suggests a source other than me. And the source that they're referring to is the Creator, by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. Now, it was Alexander Hamilton, yes, Alexander Hamilton, who no one seemed to like, but has made his way into our history books, said, and I quote him because he's a scourge kind of guy, "The sacred rights of mankind are not to be rummaged for among old parchments or musty records." In other words, these did not evolve. They are written as with a sunbeam in the whole volume of human nature by the hand of divinity itself, and can never be erased or obscured by mortal power. In other words, they exist, period. Deal with it. Thomas Jefferson said, "God who gave us life gave us liberty. Can the liberties of a nation be secure when we have removed their only basis, a conviction among the people that those liberties are the gift of God?" So if we remove the conviction that the source of our rights comes from a source higher than anything on this planet, if we lose that conviction, then we're willing to submit to the reality that the government gets to tell us what our rights are. Now, according to what I was reading earlier, this is the essence of what fascism is. So if we're operating under a philosophy like that, the government can tell me what my rights are and aren't, we've already moved into a fascist philosophy. And as Thomas Jefferson said, that if we remove the conviction that liberties are the gift of God, then liberty itself is threatened. Here we go again in the Colorado Supreme Court, same cases I mentioned earlier. We have no hesitancy in stating that there are fundamental and inherent rights with which all humans are endowed, even though no specific mention is made of them in either the national or state constitutions. A lot of people think that we have constitutional rights, that the Constitution is a document written that gives us rights, and we hide behind the Constitution and say, "I got a constitutional right." And we esteem this Constitution as though it were some divine instrument that is the source of our rights. But the Colorado Supreme Court said, no, it's not like that. And in fact, some of the rights that you have aren't even mentioned in this national or state constitution. Again, they went on to say all men have rights which have their origin as natural rights independent of any express provision of law. Constitutional provisions are not the sources of these rights. John Adams, again, second president, the inherent human freedoms with which mankind is endowed are antecedent to all earthly governments. In other words, they exist before government. In other words, if you go back to a state of nature, these rights exist in us, and that governments are established after the rights, not before. Antecedent to all earthly governments. Rights that cannot be repealed or restrained by human laws. Rights derived from the great legislator of the universe. Now, if you understand who John Adams was in history, the guy was a staunch Federalist. And after his election to president, he brought a monarchical faction into government. As a matter of fact, he headed up the Federalist Party that was pro-big government. So here we have an example of somebody in history who, by the way, was there at the signing of the Declaration of Independence, acknowledged that the source of rights come from something much higher than man. We are endowed by our Creator. Again, Article 9, an amendment to the Constitution for the United States, Article 2, Section 28 of the Colorado Constitution, and every other state in this country will find this exact provision in your Constitution. The enumeration of the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people. So there it is, you have it. The rights exist by the Creator and definitely are antecedent to government. What is a right? Now, some people think that this health care plan is a right. We're entitled to health care. Well, you know what? A right in this context that we're talking about, again, construction, it means lawful, true, correct, just claim, lawful title, ownership. In hereditary monarchies, it's a right to the throne. So rights, in this context, there's an adjective, certain unalienable or certain unalienable. These are the types of rights that we're endowed with. In other words, let's start with the word alienable. Alienable means a lien, or it comes from the root, basically means you can be separated from it. It means to alienate. For example, if you, let's say your father and your children don't get your affection, you've alienated your affection from your children. Let's say the government sends a military man off to war and leaves his family here in the United States. The family and the husband have been alienated. They've been withdrawn from each other. It means basically to separate. Alienable means that it can be sold or transferred to another. You can be, it's not really yours, it can be given away. Now, unalienable or unalienable means exactly the opposite. It means it can't be in any way affected. It belongs to you. It is certain. It cannot be stripped. It cannot be liened. It cannot be bargained or sold in any way at all. It is yours. And it is a certain gift, an endowment by the Creator. Unalienable, unalienable. Not alienable, that cannot be alienated. Cannot be transferred. Now we are endowed. Now this is a self-evident truth. This is a political philosophy that the nation of America was established on. We are endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights. That notice not totally, but among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Article 9, an amendment to the Constitution. Again, I said this earlier, but it also exists in the 9th Amendment in the United States Constitution. Okay, so now we've established we have certain unalienable rights, certain unalienable rights. This, I'm not making this up. This is the very next line, and we reviewed it earlier, that to secure these rights. What rights are these? The ones that we just talked about. To secure these rights. Which ones? The ones that are endowed upon us by the Creator. The certain unalienable ones. Governments are instituted among men. Now this is quite a concept. In other words, government has a very limited role in our lives, according to the philosophy that the Founding Fathers had in mind. The philosophy of individualism, the philosophy that government exists to serve us. Why? To secure these rights. Governments are instituted among men. This is the function of government. This is the philosophy of government that the Founding Fathers adopted as America's philosophy. That to secure these rights, again, these are the ones we just referred to. Governments are instituted. Why? Governments are instituted so that they can go out and do business with other nations. Governments are instituted so that they can bail out banks. Governments are instituted so they can bail out and buy GM. Governments are instituted so that they can provide health care. No, to secure these rights, governments are instituted. This is the reason governments are instituted, no other reason. Not to exercise tyranny, not to exercise lordship, not to become a world empire, but to secure these rights. Radical? Absolutely. But this is a political philosophy. To establish, appoint, enact, form, and prescribe. To found, originate, and establish. To begin, commence, set in operation. Secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their